And that's why you can't feel embarrassed if you have no shame. Oh, we're on? Okay.
How's it going?
How's it going, everybody? This is the world where we live. We are going to watch the leaders debate, so you don't have to. If you haven't caught it yet, I haven't. John watched a little bit of it last night. I've heard all about it on Talkback Radio and those sort of short drives I've been taking all day. But I'm going to watch it for the first time, and we're both going to give our thoughts and commentary. So if you haven't seen it, it might be worth catching up.
Yeah. From what I've seen so far, I wasn't horrifically impressed, but we will see if my mind can be changed by either one of the candidates by the end of this hour and 38-minute long video. Comments and interjections will happen arbitrarily and randomly as we decide. Let's have some fun.
No mai, haere mai, welcome everyone. Kia ora koutou, i ngā rangatira. Jacinda Ardern, Judith Collins, Tēnā kōrua, welcome. It is so good to have you with us. This is the first leaders debate of the 2020 election campaign. I even have a new clipboard. One of the two women with us tonight will be our Prime Minister for the next 3 years, and what a job that will be in these strange, tough times. Speaking of which, we would have had a live studio audience here tonight, but COVID-19 took care of that, as it has impacted on so many things. But we do have our leaders, and we do have a debate, and we do have an election. This is important. We also have sign language interpreters doing their brilliant work. So if you are deaf or hard of hearing, you can see them on Freeview Channel 200. Freeview Channel 200. Now, tonight is a debate. We hope our leaders do debate. We have very much to get through. Speeches will be reluctantly interrupted by yours truly, reluctantly. We tossed a coin. One leader will...
Sorry, I have to stop him right there. He's a moderator. He should not be reluctant to interject at all. He's being apologetic already. There's no need for that. If you want to run the country, you need to be held to account. If you are running the country, it's even more important. Nobody should go easy on you, least of all in a leaders debate. Yes, he should be proud to interrupt them and query them should the issue be necessary.
I did kind of like the glasses though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the expressions too.
Start the evening, the other will finish it. And we'd like to begin with a vision from each of you to really inspire us during these difficult times. So, if you are Prime Minister after the election, what do you want New Zealand to look like in 3 years' time? Judith Collins.
Well, thank you. Well, I love our country, and that's why I do what I do. I look at where we've been going, and I think there is a better way. And that better way is about growing our economy, getting the money that we need for health and education and everything else that we require, but also encouraging our young people to stay here in New Zealand and helping to build our economy, particularly around tech, technology, everything else around that, just actually growing it and having a life here with us and with our grandchildren.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about your grandchildren. That was perfectly timed. That was the 30-second ding. That was brilliantly done. We're going to talk about our grandchildren a little bit later on in the program. But Jacinda Ardern, what do you want New Zealand to look like in 3 years' time?
You know, for the huge challenges that the world and indeed New Zealand faces right now, there is also enormous opportunity, a chance to build back better and stronger. Now,
sorry, did she just quote Joe Biden? Build back better. She bloody did.
My goodness.
Now is the time to invest in our people and their skills and training to create jobs that look after our environment and also support growth in the economy, to back our small businesses and our exporters as they face the future. Now, I know that there is a huge amount of uncertainty right now, and that's why a plan is necessary. But John, so is optimism, and that's what
plan?
Labor will bring.
Right. Let's pick up on some of the themes there. Growing our economy, investing in our people. So we're going to talk about this a lot tonight. We've heard your visions. Thank you both and welcome. It's nice to have you both here. So we're going to spend the night working out how we are going to achieve those visions, where we are going over the next 3 years and how we're going to get there. But Judith Collins, and I'm sorry, you're a guest in our whare, and I'm starting on the tough stuff. I apologise because I suspect you're not looking forward to this, but I just want to bring up the Colmar Brunton poll from this evening. So Labor, this is the party vote, Labor on 48, National on 31. We don't have the graphic. We're just going to look at this for a while, but in Preferred Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern 54, U18. The problem is, in fact, we're going to bring that up. I think we'll bring But the problem is, Judith Collins, there's no momentum. You were 32 last time, you're 31 this time. You were the new broom that was supposed to sweep Labor out.
Well, of course, we've had the second lockdown brought about by failure at the border. That's really obvious that has actually made people think, oh, we better just sort of stay, not do anything. And it's also stopped the momentum for campaigning. Now we seem to be able to get back campaigning. And tell you what, John, we only had our launch on Sunday. We're getting back out there. And I also see there's a lot of not decideds. So actually, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to show our vision and show that we have a much more positive vision for New Zealand, particularly around building the economy and having a proper border agency in place. So, I think it's a good opportunity for us to get out there and tell you what we've got to fight on.
This is a tough Comma Brunton, though, isn't it? It's really tough. You don't want to be on 31 now. You don't want to be on 18, and you don't, do you?
Oh, actually, leaders of the opposition are often in the 18 range, and some of them would have crawled over broken glass to have got that high. I actually think it's a good opportunity for us. You know what, John? I never give up. I'm a fighter. Never give up. Always keep going. And I'm utterly positive for our country, and I've got a vision to sell.
Thank you. And we look forward to your vision, and we look forward to working out how we're going to get there. Jacinda Ardern, I want to bring you in. So you are on 54 and the preferred Prime Minister, and basically down 5 but to 48 overall as a party. According to Jess Much Mackay at 6 o'clock, Labor can potentially govern alone if you retain these figures, unless we forget it's almost 4 weeks to the election. Do you want to? Do you want the Greens there?
Look, historically, that's just not what MMP elections or MMP.
I hate to interrupt her right at this point, but that is a fantastic question. They are in government together. Would you do it without them?
Yes.
He's going to have to choose her words carefully, but I think we all know what she actually thinks.
Yes. He doesn't need the Greens. The Greens can get lost.
Exactly.
New Zealand has delivered. And I think to make any assumption like that would show complacency, which we just don't have. Every day we will be out there earning every single vote, working hard to get the support of New Zealanders. So I take nothing for granted. I take no poll for granted. And we will keep working every day of this campaign, and you will see no complacency for us and no assumptions.
Okay, let's talk about where we're going over the next 3 years. Judith Collins, you'll be delighted we've left Comma Brunton behind. Where are we going over the next 3 years, and how are we going to get there? Let's pick up on some of the phrases you use. Growing our economy, investing in our people. In order to see New Zealand grow, we either have to open the borders or we have to come up with really meaningful plan Bs. Tell me about the border, Jacinda Ardern. When do you think it will be open? Have you any sense when it will be business as usual?
Well, I think first of all we have to acknowledge that our COVID response has been successful, and the reason for that has been because of the strength at our border. It is our greatest risk. So that's why the plan there needs to be very tightly managed and controlled. What we've seen, though...
Very tightly managed and controlled, like the border after the first time we locked down for 6 weeks. That tight managed and controlled. Oh, okay.
It's going to be interesting to see if Judith is going to go at this particular point, the failure at the border. Well, maybe they're being polite. I don't know.
Yeah, Judith's not in a position.
You know who's being polite, though? John Campbell. And he shouldn't be.
I prefer Mike Hoskin, but maybe later.
John, over time is actually the number of citizens and residents coming home has started to decrease. We're getting around 14,000 in terms of our capacity a month. Our view is we can start opening up, 10% of that to bring in those really skilled workers that we need to help support and grow our economy. Just today, we made announcements around some of those coming in, specialist skills in horticulture, in our fishing industry, areas where we need that support. So that will be part of our managed plan around the border, but we also need to retrain and support New Zealanders for those jobs too.
Are you still looking at elimination? Are we looking at elimination? Yep. What are we trying to achieve?
We're trying to achieve an open economy, because you can see, relative to other countries, our open economy has allowed us to get back to some sense of normality when the rest of the world has been in some really severe restrictions and significant loss of life. And so, yes, we have a stamp it out regime. It means every time we see cases, we move very quickly. That's how, in a global global pandemic, we can get back to as normal as possible.
How do we make this work, Judith Collins? What would you do differently?
Well, for a start, we put out our very comprehensive border plan today, have a border protection agency that's dedicated to that, being able to actually partner with some of the private providers as long as we're absolutely certain that they are fulfilling their requirements, but also making sure that we charge a contribution towards the cost of quarantine managed isolation. I think that's absolutely crucial, because otherwise we've got about $600 million being allocated by December this year for the cost of it, and we think people should contribute towards it. We also think that there's an opportunity here. We know there's an opportunity for skilled professionals to come in, particularly those that need in the horticultural area, but in other industries.
You agree
and we need to be able to do that.
You're agreeing with each other, aren't you?
No, we're saying that you need a proper border protection agency, and that we need to be able to charge for it. We wouldn't let people on a plane, for instance, unless they've had a negative COVID-19 test. So if we can help prevent that coming in, that will help deal with the other situations that we have.
I think probably the biggest difference, as far as I can ascertain in our plan, John, we have used obviously private facilities. We've used hotels, because that's the best way we can get safe distance between.
Didn't you mention something about how much extra they're paying for hotels now, and how it's screwing Airbnb owners and private property owners?
It was because the hospitality industry is tanked. They have jacked up the prices, and they'll jack them up even more, knowing that the government's going to pay for it. So really, and that has been a major criticism of the lockdowns and of the situation. It really altered the playing field, allowing supermarkets to trade, but not butchers and things like that.
Greengrocers.
And greengrocers. It's benefited some generally larger corporations, and has absolutely crushed small businesses.
Do you know who has really benefited? Think about who controls the workforce at supermarkets. Who controls the workforce at the large corporates? Unions. Who votes for Labour?
Unions.
Who provides the funding? Unions.
Well, they've already
Who's
given them
benefiting out of this?
They've already given them a few pay rises.
Yeah, exactly.
Between people who are in them, that we can manage the quarantine. And again, the equivalent of a small town of New Zealand in any given fortnight is in these facilities. Where we're really clear, though, is we've got roughly 4,000 professionals, army personnel, police, health professionals. Those are the most important agents within our border controls to make sure it's safe. And I'm not clear what their role will be next.
This can't continue. We can't continue taking the police off their work, dealing with family violence and everything else they deal with, to do this, unless we have a border protection agency where somebody is in charge. All these many agencies all talking to each other, nobody actually in charge. So we need to have someone in charge who everybody reports through to. That's where that border protection agency would come in. And yes, the military, yes, the police would all work.
Sorry, Judith, I really don't think we need to create any more damn agencies. We've already got MAF. That is supposed to be looking after our borders and primary industries and things like that. That's the whole point of them existing. What are they doing about this? We don't need another agency. I want less government bureaucracy, not more, and you're giving me more. Why everyone's calling you Labour Light?
To that, but someone needs to be in charge, and that's one of the problems that Ms Ardern's had with her situation with people being able to go from Auckland to Wellington and all sorts of things and go AWOL. That's the problem, and we need to also have COVID testing actually happen. So the testing of the border staff, we had 2 months of Ms Ardern telling us they were being tested and they weren't.
Oh, look, my response to that would be quite simple. Actually, we've had 50,000 people. We've had 8 incidents across 50,000 people. And
I hate to say it, and don't like interrupting the mid-speech, but this is spin. She knows that that is a factual statement, what Judith has said. They did drop the ball when it came to testing the border staff. In fact, there was at one point, the exact quote escapes me now, but I believe it was Bloomfield saying, we don't round up cattle to force them. We round up cattle to force them to take a test. We don't do that with human beings. It was voluntary, the tests that the border staff were taken. A lot of them declined to take the test. They weren't punished or coerced into doing it. And then COVID was let loose in the community again. This is what you're listening to now is just a bit of spin.
That has been because we have involved the likes of the police, we have involved the Defence Force. That's been a really important part of running a really tight ship.
Okay.
That is our biggest risk, so we do need to be careful.
I'm getting the wind, and we've got to go to an ad break. I blame the shareholder for that. Some money is required. But I just want to try and get some clarity on where we are with letting people in. So let's think of the avatar exemption, right? Yeah. So these are not only high net worth individuals, because actually it's got to be meaningful in terms of the jobs they create. How are we going to make that work, and how do we get the line in the sand right? Jacinda Ardern and then Judith Collins.
I'll give you an example. We do need to make sure that we are supporting those industries that have skills gap to bring in New Zealanders. Kiwi Fruit industry is a great example, usually really highly reliant on an offshore workforce. And this season we partnered with them. We redeployed those who had lost jobs in other areas to work in the industry. We've supported training so that people can get a micro taste of what it's like to work in industry. And at the same time, they've paid decent wages. That's meant we've able to increase the number of New Zealanders in those jobs. If it's highly specialised, yes, there will be occasions.
Okay, so this is the part I had misheard earlier when I was watching this little bit before. I thought she was talking about unskilled migrants coming to the country, and she sort of is, but she is actually saying here something that I do sort of agree with, which is we've got a whole bunch of unemployed people now. We can't have any migrants come in. Why aren't we training these people? Okay, I am on board with that kind of stuff, because you're training people to do things for jobs that already exist here for Kiwis that are already in this country.
It's a nice thought, John, but that's not what the Labour Party have been about. There have been more people joining the benefit even before COVID, and that was because the benefits were becoming more generous, and that's even less of an incentive to people to get into work. And I mean, Mike Hoskin called it quite about a year ago. When you have your unemployment rate down to about 4 to 5%, what it actually means is if you want a job, you can get one.
Yeah.
If you don't want a job, if you're unemployable or unwilling to be employed, and the welfare state is generous and the government is not going to force you to do so, then you're not going to have one. But that's basically as low as we can get the unemployment rate.
I agree, and I would say that is where we're far in excess of that unemployment rate at the moment. Like, I do not believe the government numbers that say it's 4 to 5% now, going up to maybe 7 to 8%. It is way bigger than that. So the general idea of what she's talking about, I'm actually kind of in favour with. I don't mind training Kiwis to go and get a job. So I think we have far too many unemployed people, particularly unemployable people, lying around as well. So the sentiment of what she's saying, I actually do agree with in this case. Like, I'm actually okay with that. That's helping people up rather than giving them a handout.
By all means, let's just
won't do it though.
That's the thing. Hope they put it into practice, because that goes completely contrary to their philosophy.
It does.
As up till now.
When we will use our border exemptions to bring in those who support jobs and support our economy.
Okay.
But right now, we have to just accept that there will be limitations to safe border management.
So the border is going to operate pretty much as it is now. That's what you're saying.
Well, we have had incremental change over time. When capacity is available, we will use 10% to support business and grow our economy outside of citizens and residents.
It's not enough, John. We've got a $9.5 billion industry in horticulture that's crying out for specialist staff to come in, and actually they're not getting even a look in the door with Ms Ardern's policy.
How do we bring them in?
We bring them in, as we say.
That's a high volume workforce, isn't it?
It is a high volume.
So we need a lot of work.
Yeah, and by the way, John, a lot of them come from parts of the world where there is no COVID at all.
So Jerry Brownlee today, as well as 500.
Jerry Brownlee has already been able to. He's already put out the policy on it, which would actually been with those people coming from areas where there is no COVID-19 at all. We'd give them the same treatment that Ms Ardern's given to the Australian rugby team. We'd treat them like they were equals.
Judith Collins and Jacinda Ardern, that was a good start and a good debate and good to and fro. Less of me, more of you. That is a good thing. Thank you both. We really appreciate it. After the break, we're going to talk about what we need to get right and the opportunity to do big reinventions now, given how up in the air everything is. Stay with us. We may not have it all dense, but we do have questions from a range of New Zealanders tonight. The first of our special guests, I guess, sets down a challenge for the leaders after the break.
Thoughts, intermission. They're being awfully polite.
That they are, and there's not really that much content in this first little bit. Anyway, that's sort of warming up. This is sort of the warm up leading to that. But
they're using their obviously very pre-done line.
I understand why people vote for Jacinda. Like the thing that she said there, like I can get on board with that. I want to help people up too. But it never happens. It's what she's been saying forever.
It's
and it never happens.
Compassion and a maternal sort of view on everything, including the relationship between the government and the citizens.
I think the telling part is that she said she's redeploying the workforce. Sorry, what? It's your workforce, is it? It's your workforce. Everybody works for you, do they? That's a very, very telling sign of the Marxism sitting in the background, that you consider yourself to be the controller of everybody else and that you know what's best and that you can decide where the workforce goes and wait, we're just going to take all these people and redeploy them over here. That's just what we're going to do. So, A, that's not how that works. And B, you've never ever done it. Not once, ever. You've been in power for 3 years now.
And of course, and a lot of these people who are out of work, you know, flight attendants, pilots, specialists.
Are not going to be redeployed to horticulture.
Exactly. They're not going to pick strawberries. They're not going to pick kiwi fruit. Let us continue. 5 seconds at a time. Oh, goodness.
Oh, come on. Oh, well, this explains why it's 2 hours 30 long.
The good part is it's not going
The leaders articulated yet. Judith Collins.
to be as long as it's going to be.
Welcome back to the First Leaders Debate with Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins. Thank you for your company, and thank you for your company, leaders. In the first break, our leaders' visions for the next 3 years and beyond, discussion about borders and how we get, where we're going. How do we get to the future that the leaders articulated in their opening statements? Here is our first question. And it's a universal and it's a particular question. We'll start with the particular. Let's hear it. You will have 30 seconds each to respond.
My name is David Smythe. I'm Chief of Medicine and Cardiologist at Christchurch Hospital. Behind me is the world-class Hagley Hospital, which will open 2 years late. This, plus the effects of the earthquake, has led to our deficit of $180 million. As a result, we'll have to continue to look after many people with old facilities on 6-bedded mixed-sex wards and where people have to share toilet facilities with 6 others. How can you help us?
Jacinda Ardern, we're going to start with you. That seems like a strange question because it seems very particular to Canterbury, and I guess it is, but it's also an infrastructure question.
Yeah.
And it's about playing catch up. And it's about what happens when we don't do the work when we need to do it, right? Yeah. So our DHB's total debt, somewhere north of 600 million, newsrooms estimating somewhere north of 800 million. Let's start with the Canterbury example, $180 million deficit. They've got to find cuts of $59 million for the ministry. Do you want to make any suggestions about the cuts they should make?
2 things. I think, firstly, we have to acknowledge that Canterbury has had some very particular and significant challenges. And so with both, of course, the huge residual impact on mental health because of the earthquakes, but also March 15, we have put specific funding in, for instance, programs like Mana Ake, looking after children in primary schools to make sure that they have good mental health support, right through to direct support through the DHB. Then if we pan out, actually the experience that's being spoken of here is not unusual. We have significant infrastructure deficits, record 900 million plus put into our DHB's last budget. We need to keep going with the investment because there's a long rebuild ahead of us with our hospitals.
Or, get this. Your hospitals need to stop going over budget and thinking that the money found is infinite. David said before, he's $180 million in deficit. Is that perhaps because you overspent and overplanned and didn't actually do your work bloody properly, just expecting that the government would just give you more money at the other end of the day, some infinite money pot at the end of the rainbow of gold?
And it's exactly what happens a lot of the time.
All the time.
You know, that they bid and they bid and they bid and they have a low estimate. All the budget goes out of control, and it's the sunk costs. They use the sunk costs.
The additions.
This much, we have to finish it. We have to finish the City Rail link. It's several billion over budget now, but same thing. And if you try and argue that, it's a hospital. We're not going to abandon a hospital.
Why does that make it special?
Judith Collins, what do you say? I've been watching DHB debt mount and mount and mount, and I've interviewed successive ministers about it, and one after another they've said it's fine. And what we're seeing now is that it is not. Our DHBs are breaking under the strain. What happens?
Well, that DHB, that hospital, that cost $500 million. We funded it, started getting it going, and it obviously took a couple of years longer. But clearly, we don't have enough money going into some parts of the system. And what we've heard...
No, sorry, Judith. You have a spending problem. You are giving people this budget. Your budget is $500 million. Go away and build a hospital for $500 million. I don't care if it takes longer. You should have planned that time into the construction project to begin with. Everybody knows there's about 20 to 25% of what I like to call screwing around time, which you have to account for. So you build a $400 million hospital, and the extra $100 million is for the screwing around. But since this doesn't get done and is run by a bunch of public servants, what you should be telling the voters in bloody Canterbury to do is to vote out their district health board leaders because they're clearly fucking incompetent.
Well said.
From Ms Ardern's government is that there's an issue between the Ministry of Health and the DHB. But you know what? People of Canterbury don't care about that. They just want it sorted. I don't understand why that's the problem.
How do you sort it? If there are $180 million in deficit, how do you sort it?
Well, they've sent in Dr Lester Levy. Personally, I would send in Dr Shane Reti as Minister of Health.
But what would he do? What would he do?
They're going to need to have some extra money. That's pretty obvious.
So would you excuse them their debt? Would you excuse them their debt?
Well, I think we also need to understand is what they're there for. They're there to provide health services for the people of Canterbury, and we're going to have to do that in some cases. So that $500 million that built the hospital, that's 1 week of the wage subsidy from the last lockdown. So that's just how much money is involved in that.
Sorry, so would you excuse them the debt?
Well, we may have to, but I'll tell you what, John, we'd find out what the issue is. And the Ministry of Health under Chris Hipkins has been dealing with it. I'd like them to front up what's been going on.
Jacinda Ardern, would you excuse them the debt?
There are two separate issues here. One, I would say, is New Zealand's infrastructure deficit, be it our schools, be it our hospitals, be it our transport network, where we have not had a consistent pipeline, nor have we had sufficient skills and governance around those infrastructure.
And I want to widen out to
the
that.
Second thing on the DHBs.
Canterbury DHB, $180 million in deficit. The ministry is saying, find me $59 million worth of cuts.
But it is not for lack of significant investment, which is why we've gone back to first principles and said, because the clinicians have told us, we need to look at our health sector as a whole. It is failing our people despite significant investment. If I can finish on this point, last budget we put in over $900 million into our DHBs to keep our hospitals going and the lights on. Judith Collins' budget for next year has as an entire operating allowance less than that, $800 million. If we want quality health services and quality education, it does take...
Define quality. Define what you mean by quality. Do you mean all healthcare from the very, very minor stuff, when somebody gets a crepe and a plaster or just needs a broken leg or something fixed, all the way through multi-million-dollar cancer therapy and heart surgery? Do you mean all of that? You can't do all of that. What you're proposing is preposterous.
It's not even answering the question properly. They're talking about obviously squandering the money. 180 million and everything, and their solution effectively is to pour more money into it. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked up till now.
Ongoing investment.
I want to pull out because it seems to me that we're not having the conversation we need to have at the moment. And that conversation is about the kind of infrastructural and social deficits. And we're going to talk about the social deficits in break 3 and 4. So we're going to get to those, the people who are being left behind. But, you know, thank goodness neither of you had to come from the North Shore tonight. So we have, and I remember John Key announcing in 2013 we were going to have a second harbour crossing. And I just wonder, Judith Collins, is now the time to say all bets are off. Let's get the future right starting now.
Exactly, and that's why we announced $31 billion of infrastructure. And one of the things that we said that we would do, announcements, was to do a second harbour crossing as a tunnel, and that would be starting in 2028. So it's a little while yet, but I tell you what, that's because it's a huge job. But also...
I'm also done with people promising things outside the election term. Like, you can't self-promise something in 2028 because you might not be there by then.
Well, Jacinda first promised their tax policy. I believe the comment was We have a working group looking at that. We'll get back to you after the election. So they do it all the time.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be allowed to. You shouldn't be able to promise things for an election cycle that you're not in.
And why begin in 2028?
My only problem with my own comment that I've just made then is it does really give that short-term thinking approach all the time, though. But you legitimately cannot promise that, because you might win this election, Judith, maybe, or Jacinda might, or you might win the next one. You don't know.
There's always that political element of sort of beyond what I'd be responsible for, even if in a theoretical sense.
They're trying to get across the feeling of we're planning for the very long-term future, which I approve of, but you also can't make that promise. Like, good luck.
It is important that we do this. So when Ms Ardern talks about infrastructure in the hospitals, actually that hospital is a new hospital, which, by the way, we built. So, yeah, it took some time, and that's what happens with hospitals.
Can I just come back? You know, when you face a crisis like we are now, now is the time when we do need to make sure that we have that long-term pipeline of infrastructure investment. The pipeline that we've announced is the largest that we've seen in any 5-year period of a government. But it needs to go back into those basics, things like health and education services, because I'll be honest, in my term in office, I never anticipated announcing money for pipes and lifts and elevators at Starship. But that is what we've had to rebuild. You have to consistently invest, and your budget has to. My concern is that out of national, when we're seeing a consistent
we've just given $31 billion of transport infrastructure, and by the way, $4.2 billion to rebuild schools that are needed, and also to build new schools. So $4.2 billion, I haven't heard anything from Ms Ardern about that. What about that?
The question is, we're having a discussion about debt, right? So the Nat said we had an aspirational target of 30% of GDP by 2030. Now it's in the mid-30s by the mid-30s. Yeah, 36 by the mid-30s. Labor's is much higher, and you're taking much longer to repay it. Why the hell don't we say, let's do it now?
We are.
We don't have the people.
So give me an example. Give me an example of what you are doing now. And you mentioned our grandchildren before.
Yeah.
So give me an example of what James, who is your son, and Neve, who is your daughter, will be grateful for in 20 or 30 years' time.
Well, I'd say one of the biggest challenges that we will face as a country is the fact that climate change is upon us, and we have to prepare our country for that. One of the projects that we're investing in, for instance, looking into pumped hydro, will mean New Zealand will be able to become 100% renewably charged by our electricity network. Now, what a difference that will make, not just to the opportunities for New Zealand as one of the few places in the world that will be powered by 100% renewable electricity, but also for our exporters, for our reputation, and also wider opportunities around our transport network. Those are the kind of opportunities.
No, sorry, that's just nonsense.
Judith Collins.
That pumped hydro, $30 million being spent on just a business case. And by the way, all that happens, electricity prices go up. And that's what Ms Ardern's own experts are telling her. Electricity prices up. We're the third biggest user of renewable energy in the world. And actually that's gone down since in our rates of renewable since Ms Ardern took office. I'm someone who's owned and run small businesses. What I can tell you, John, small businesses want to know that we're not going to put up electricity prices, but they don't want to see 30% increases in electricity prices, or, as according to the experts, 14% up for residential, big numbers for industrial and commercial. That's what's happening.
Dealing with our drought,
Jacinda
years, which is what pumped hydro does, and moving us to 100% renewables actually brings the price down.
Is it Labor's fault?
Yes.
The original, they had. Yes, but the actual drought that's happening now was because they didn't take action. The National Party
who's been in charge of the 1993 for all these years
did not take action and take it from the Waikato back then.
They should have, yes. There's a lack of investment in infrastructure on all parties.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And it's not specifically Labor's fault.
Projects, not enough infrastructure.
Exactly.
So we have to be realistic about the challenges we face. And John,
I just want to come in there, and I want to ask you, are we being realistic enough?
Yes.
You know what? I will say this about Ms Ardern. When they try and question her and everything, she doesn't keep talking over them and waits for the question. And good on her for that.
about the challenges
But we
face.
have to be both realistic and hopeful. You know, it can't just be about what absolutely needs to be done now. And yes, the restoration of our hospitals and our education system. But we have to think about what it is going to be like for our kids. Climate change is upon us. We have to grasp this opportunity, use it to create jobs, and pumped hydro creates thousands, but also invest in the problems we already had. Inequality. Let's put food in schools.
We're going to talk.
Housing.
We're going to talk.
That's completely, using the buzzwords. That's twice now. Climate change is upon us, and also to jump to inequality. Jump to another of those.
Put food in schools. I think the more pertinent thing to address is why aren't kids getting fed in the first place?
Exactly, but they're not into going into the family homes because that would be an affront to human rights.
Yeah. Build more public
is so important.
People don't have jobs. That's the big issue. 400 people lose their jobs every day under this government.
We have to take a break. We're going to talk about stimulus and how we create jobs and how we protect jobs, and we're also going to talk about inequality. They are both very important things. Very quick question before we go. We're talking about our future, and we're talking about young people and their role in it. Should the voting age be lowered to 16, Judith Collins?
No, I don't think it does.
Jacinda Ardern?
I wouldn't rule it out in the future, but let's get civics right first. Let's support our young people to learn about politics.
Is that a yes or a no?
I don't know. It's like cannabis. Can't say.
Okay, we've heard our leaders where they want to go, but will they be taking everyone along? This is the point around inequality, isn't it?
Have we talked about my position on voting? Have we?
We have. We did that 2 episodes ago. The thing is, I think it should be pretty obvious to everybody. The youngest voters, sort of 16 to 18, overwhelmingly lean to the left. So, of course, Judith is going to say no, even if she thought it was a good idea. Of course, Ardern is going to say yes, even though she doesn't want to anger anybody. But ultimately, it's to get more votes. That's all it is.
But I would also say the reason why young people lean to the left and why older people lean to the right is because young people haven't paid any tax yet.
And they lack the life experience to realise that it's not all rainbows, beer, pizza, and unicorns.
Because they are looked after by their parents and the government and the school system, the public health system. They're looked after in all these kind of ways in this country. And this is why my only qualification is, are you tax positive? If yes, you can vote. I don't care what age you are. If you're an 8-year-old and you've been working the whole time and you pay tax, you're paying PAYE, income GST tax, you're paying those, and you're tax positive overall, which is almost impossible because too many social services, then you can vote. I really don't care.
Today's Conservatives were yesterday's revolutionaries.
Yep, exactly.
So after the break, another question for our leaders. This is a really challenging one. Stay with us.
I don't have anything more to
38 minutes of ads. 38 minutes of ads.
They got to pay for
some people. Welcome back, everyone. It's great to have your company. We've been talking a lot about where we're going and how we're going to get there, what will work and what won't. But the question is, will some people be left behind? And that is what our second question tonight is about. It's a theme that we're going to pick up on and run with. And it comes from a really remarkable young New Zealander.
Talafalava, alo ingo o Aingangali Fili Fipule Tapui, and I'm a head girl at Aorere College for Mangere in South Auckland. Over the course of this year, due to COVID-19, I've seen a lot of students, including my own friends, sacrificing their youth to provide for their families by dropping out to work. So what are you going to do to ensure that our students' futures are taken care of in the oncoming years, and so none of our students are left behind?
That is a very loaded question. There's no reason why they shouldn't drop out and do work and support their families. It's probably a lot more beneficial than staying in the indoctrination labs that are schools and universities.
She is a remarkable young woman, and when she tells the story of students having to leave her school, and I've spoken to principals who tell the same story, because they feel that they want to go and work to support mum and dad. It's heartbreaking, and none of our children are going to have to do that, are they? Touch wood. So Judith Collins, what is your answer to Fili?
Well, Fili, I understand actually. My husband is Samoan, so Talofa. And he was actually taken out of school when he was 15, ran away to his auntie, who took him back so he could go to school. And that's what happens for many kids who have got a lot of pressure on them because their parents don't have enough money for them. So my view is we've got to get people into trades, we've got to get them educated, but also we have to make sure that we have jobs that people can go to so parents can look after their children rather than the other way around.
I want to come back and pick up on some of that stuff, but Jacinda Ardern, could you respond to Philly?
Well, for Philly, I'd say I don't want any young person feeling like they have to leave school, but I understand how strong that draw would be to support their families. So the first port of call is make sure that their family members have jobs that are earning adequate income to not just survive but to thrive, and so those young people can be young and continue with their education.
Define to me adequate income. What do you mean by adequate? Adequate is a subjective term.
They usually mean the living wage, I think.
But the living wage will perpetually go up in cycles because it is always higher than minimum wage, and the minimum wage going up increases the living wage. So it goes up forever. Why not make the living wage $10,000 a second? Why not? Why not? Just make it that. Just make the minimum wage $1,000 an hour. Go for it. See what happens. Exactly the same thing that happens now will happen then, because all the prices will just go up that amount because that's inflation. So you have to make people more productive in their work, not just increase the minimum wage. And you're telling me that there's families out there that are supporting whole families that are all on the minimum wage, that both parents are working and both parents in their mid-30s and 40s are on the minimum wage.
Well, that's the thing. And
got a bloody problem there, mate, and it ain't the fucking minimum wage.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to. The minimum wage is for the first couple of years, maybe 3 years of your working life.
When you're 18.
If you're on it any longer than that, I'm afraid the problem's in the mirror.
Yep.
It's like keeping up with lifting the minimum wage. You know, we've done that already and it's made a difference of more than $100 a week.
No, it hasn't. It's just made it more expensive.
For families. Us as government paying a living wage for those who are in jobs like security and cleaning, making sure.
I know for a fact that you pay security guards to watch your bloody facilities, what? $80 an hour. $80 an hour is what private security firms get charged to your bloody government. That's what you are paying. Then those security guards get charged out at $25 an hour. And how do I know this? Because I talked to a small business owner that runs a security firm just the other day. So I know what you're bloody paying security guards and security firms for these kind of things. So you bloody turn around and telling me they're getting $25 an hour from working a security job, which is basically unskilled labor, walking around, looking outside and calling the police if you see anything. You're telling me that $25 an hour is not enough for that? You're bloody kidding me. What the hell are these people doing? From you!
Sure that those jobs pay. That's what makes a difference to families being able to keep their kids in education.
Actually, having a job is really important.
And of course,
and what we're hearing from small business owners, and I was one, is that they can't afford constant increases in the minimum wage when they haven't got the money coming through the door.
I think that's a very good point, and Judith's right to play to her own experience. And a lot of the National Caucus are the same. They are business people, men and women. They do understand this a lot better than the Labour Party. That's the state of things. The hint's there in the name anyway. And yeah, good on her for invoking that.
What's the minimum wage now?
Well, it's not quite $20 an hour. I think it's 18.9 or something like that.
$18.90.
Yeah.
And it's going to go up to $20 in April of next year.
Oh, yep.
If Labour are in government, if Nationals in government, is it?
It's not going to this time.
Okay.
And that's because of the fact that we are in the worst recession in 160 years, according to the Reserve Bank governor.
So what about your tax cuts? So let's look at people on the minimum wage, because that's what we're talking about now. Let's cut to the chase. You were giving them $8.
Why do we always compare people that are minimum wage? It's like most of the countries are minimum wage, which is not true. It's a couple of percent.
Hold on, did he just say you are giving them money? No,
He did say that.
They're not taking as much money.
So we hear that again in instant replay.
So let's look at people on the minimum wage, because that's what we're talking about now. Let's cut to the chase. You were giving them $8.
Yep.
$8. Why so little? And
Not giving, letting them keep.
you say your tax package is about a stimulus package. What we know, one of the first rules of fiscal stimulus is if you want money spent, you give it to low-income people, right? Because
No, you let them retain more of the money that they earn.
they spend the money they get.
Well, of course, people who are on the minimum wage will get a tax cut. It's not enormous,
$8.
but but the biggest impact is going to be for the average earner, the $64,000 earner, the people like the nurses, the primary school teachers, because actually, John, they're really suffering, and we believe that that does need to be improved.
Are they suffering more than people on the minimum wage?
Well, actually, John, it is important that we all understand that, John. You're not paid the minimum wage, and nor am I. But the fact is that people do get have qualifications, they've done the sort of work. Are you really seriously saying that primary school teachers should be paid the minimum wage? Because I don't think so.
That's not what I'm saying at all. No. I
shouldn't get a tax cut right now.
That is hilarious. That answer was so good it put the moderator off kilter.
I shouldn't. My view is that right now, tax cuts, they're simply irresponsible.
Well, give it back then.
When we're looking at what we need, that fund, the fund that it's being drawn from is our COVID Response and Recovery Fund. At the moment, it has $14 billion in it. This will take out
That's all borrowed money.
It's not fair.
It's not fair to
get us through this pandemic.
I just wonder.
It's just not responsible to draw from that.
I just look at your tax policies, it feels to me like you're both on autopilot. The Nats have come out with a tax policy, it's fiscal stimulus, but you're not delivering it to the people most likely to spend it. Labor's come out with a increase of the TOPS tax rate on people earning over $180,000 a year. It's going to raise $500 million per annum. It is essentially almost meaningless, isn't it? And aren't you both lazily kind of conforming to Labor Party and National Party orthodoxy?
I don't know. Is Ms Ardern going to bring in a capital gains tax? Because that's what she made an issue last time.
Of the Labor Party, which is to support our people. And yes, we have said that actually we do think we need an additional tax rate. We are focusing on the top 2%. 98% of New Zealanders won't be touched because, John, my honest view is in this time, now is not the time to have huge uncertainty around tax policy, but now is the time to invest in those who are on our lowest wages. We should pay them a living wage.
So how are you investing in them?
Well, as government, whenever we're contracting, we'll pay a living wage. We will keep seeing lifts in the minimum wage, and you have seen for those on the lowest income who do spend in our economy, we've increased, of course, the winter energy payment, and we had increases to the benefit.
Look, I'm sorry, we've got people losing their jobs, 400 jobs a day from that last lockdown. I mean, it's all very well to talk about increase the minimum wage when people are losing their jobs, and it's, giving away a holiday and things. Well, small business owners can't pay the bills now.
How do you protect their jobs? How do you create new jobs?
Well, for a start, we do is that we give the people who are going to spend money doing things a stimulus tax cut. And we also, John, this is really important for businesses, is to double their depreciation rate so that they can, only on plant and equipment, so they can get out there, spend some money, start employing people, and that is really important.
I want to come back to this point. Yeah. And Brookings Tax Policy Centre said, and I quote, verbatim quote, for fiscal stimulus to work, it is essential that the funds be spent, not saved. You are giving $58 a week to people over $90,000 who are going to save it or put it onto their mortgages, aren't they?
No, they're not. They're going to spend it. Do you know what, John?
How do you know?
People will spend it because, actually, John, there's some of the people losing their jobs every day, by the way. It's really important. People are looking now. They are going to be spending that money, John, just as everyone else. I was asked the other day, well, what would you do with an extra $50? I said, I'd probably spend it, actually. You know why? Because it is important to get that economy going. People understand. Primary school teachers, they're not the rich. They're not the wealthy. They need a break.
If I may, John, yes, of course, we are in an economic crisis, but actually the wage subsidy supported 1.7 million New Zealanders. So look, right now we've got roughly 12% of our working age population on government support. At the peak of the GFC, it was 13. So some of those investments have made a huge difference, but I'm not satisfied with that. I want to create jobs as well.
How are you going to?
Well, we've got to firstly, as I've already said, we've got to invest in the kind of infrastructure that does double duty.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you invest in infrastructure, and we used the example before of the Auckland, the second harbour crossing, 2028.
If I can, I'll give you an example.
So how do you create jobs now?
Let me give you an example. Right now, we are demolishing the buildings on the site for Dunedin Hospital.
Finally,
that will be a project that will create thousands of jobs. We've also invested in a shovel-ready project to train at the Tech those in trades training that we need to build that hospital. We get a double whammy of both building a facility and training our young people. At the same time, we're subsidising employers to hire apprentices. So unlike in the GFC when we lost them, we're growing them. That's the kind of double duty I want right now. We invest in skills.
it's very positive language and emotive language, but I'm very sad to say the reality is completely different.
A huge
infrastructure
sector right
need,
now.
and we create
Yeah, we've got a huge
jobs.
sector
Judith Collins.
right now that Ms Ardern doesn't seem to know about, and that's the tech sector. I announced a tech policy yesterday. There's a reason. That is worth $8 billion to us as an economy. That is enormous. It's our fourth biggest export. And you know what, John? It's really high-paying jobs. So that's why we're investing in STEM scholarships for young people from low decile schools. That means to study maths and technology and engineering. That's in science. These are the sorts of things we should be doing, and we could do it now for people right now. $1,000.
How are you going to create jobs now? How are you going to create jobs now?
Well, we've already got jobs available in the tech sector, but also we need to bring people in as well. PhD students coming to do 6 months with us in New Zealand, learning new things, but also adding it.
Sorry, how are you going to create jobs now?
Well, they already are. They're being, in the tech sector, they're already being created. But we need our New Zealand kids to be up to date with STEM subjects, to actually learn about science and technology. That's our fourth biggest sector. We put out a big policy on that yesterday. It's actually about getting, not only we've got entrepreneurs.
Can you label the other three?
No.
Oh, that I want to know, because I think it goes agriculture and then booze.
Really?
I think it does. Don't quote me on that. I'm actually going to fact check myself.
Doing a lot of fact checking here.
Largest industries. Largest export industry. Oh, apparently everybody else has been Googling that too. Export goods, dairy products, meat, so agriculture.
Yep.
Woods, lawns and wood. I don't know why that didn't occur to me. That's bloody obvious, isn't it? Products, fruit, horticulture, machinery. Equipment, wine, seafood. Oh, is there a better? What are the top three exports? Top the US exports. Oops. Maybe I need to do a technology course.
They're saying they wanted to do this in Trump's debate with Biden, have live fact checkers. So if they said anything,
Joe must show. Have you seen that? Joe must show.
Certainly. Absolutely.
Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Joe Rogan, 4 hours. Do it. Do it. Do it, Joe Biden. We know you can't. Top 10 exports. Okay. According to a Google search, got it. Go away, cookies. Dairy, eggs, and honey, 10 billion. Meat, 5.3 billion. Wood, 3.3 billion. Fruit, nuts, 2.2 billion. That was last year. Oh, machinery, including computers, was down at 1.8. So I don't think Judith's quite right there, but maybe she's talking about.
Like, if she mentions the top ones, Cindy's only going to counter with environmentalism, and
I don't think that's industry. I think those are just like actual things.
The thing is, I think the main point is that it is a good idea to invest in STEM, people getting educated in STEM fields.
You can't go wrong with STEM.
Right now, wanting to do it, and the ultra-fast broadband, that is part of it.
Let's be realistic.
Okay.
There are barriers. There are barriers to opportunities now. We need to make sure for the next generation that we're removing any barriers for them accessing the education they deserve. You know, things like making trades training and apprenticeships free, supporting young people to go into
Not free, taxpayer funded.
the vocational training. We need jobs like mental health workers for free. And that first year of free tertiary education has meant that we have now many first in a generation or in a family going into higher education. If we really want to create high-skilled, high-wage jobs, let's support our young people to get into them. Let's remove those barriers as well.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it sounds very nice, but that fees-free tertiary was an abject failure. It barely increased the number of, well, certainly didn't increase the number of graduates, but a number of people going into tertiary education, like John pointed out, a lot of them dropped out, and that's because they didn't have what it takes. And the reason they didn't have what it takes, well,
university's not for everybody.
Not having what it takes was the reason they weren't there, and the government making it free wasn't going to make them able to pass.
University is not the be all end all. It is not for everybody. If you are not a studious person who wants to go and study books and read lots of crap all day, every day, and make your eyes bleed, go and do something practical. I know plenty of guys and girls who are in the trades now, and they're making a hell of a lot more money than I am, and I have 3 degrees.
Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins contested with great passion because it matters, doesn't it? What happens to brilliant young women like Ayanga Lafili really matters.
I hope she's learning science. Maths.
Actually, I think she wants to be a climate change engineer.
Oh, well, that's great. We can find a job for her.
Well, but the point she's making is it might be a theoretical exercise because these kids don't feel they can afford to go to university because they're supporting mum and dad, right? And that's what we're going to talk about after the break.
So once again, that's an extreme example. It's only really come up in the last several months due to COVID. So
Can you tell me, John, how many New Zealand families have got 15, 16-year-olds who are dropping out of school to support their parents? Because it's got to be, what, 0.001% of a population?
It's once again, I understand why they're doing it. It's trying to coax it's trying to make a tough question for them and coax a meaty answer out of it. But once again, look, it's an extreme scenario. It is not the norm. And no, I think it's a rather, it's a
spurious example.
It's not a representation of the voting public to keep invoking scenarios like that.
Right. Are you working really hard and feeling like you're getting nowhere? Do you ever think you'll own a home or that your kids will? Are you getting by? Let's get some answers from our leaders to another question after the break.
Was the recording of this?
Possibly.
Recording. So we've just taken a little bit of a break and we have skipped all the adverts and we're queued up and ready to go.
I took a few sips of wine because really watching the leaders debate, you need to have some alcohol. It looks so unprofessional on the podcast, but
you all know we're doing that in the background anyway.
Exactly.
Let's get on with this. What have we got? Halfway? Nearly there.
Welcome back to the One News Leaders Debate. Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins, it's great to have you both with us. Thank you for being here tonight. These are strange times. Nothing quite makes sense. We are in a recession, jobs are being lost, and there is a housing boom. But then again, there's almost always a housing boom in this country, which is great for those of us who can afford to be part of it. But, and it's a big but, and here's our next question.
Kia ora koroa, I'm Chris Farrelly and I'm the Auckland City Missioner. We are seeing more and more people who are unable to meet basic and daily cost of living expenses, putting food on the table, paying their rent, despite working and earning an income. Some of these people are actually juggling 2 or 3 jobs and still can't earn enough money to pay for their basic essential needs for themselves and their children. If you should lead the next government, what is your plan for addressing income inadequacy and wealth inequality in New Zealand?
Jacinda Ardern, we're going to give you 30 seconds each to speak to this because this is a big point, and then we'll have a broader discussion about the pressures on low-income households. So Jacinda Ardern first.
I spent a bit of time at City Mission. In fact, the last time I was there, I sat and spoke with a number of clients who talked about the fact that they were in new, warm, dry state housing builds. So first of all, I'd say we need to keep rebuilding our state housing stock. We have a plan to add an extra 8,000 to those we've already built. Secondly, we do need to address income inadequacy. I've talked already about the things I believe.
Not inadequacy, inequality is what he's talking about.
And also the head of the Auckland City Mission, he was talking about the increasing numbers of people. There are far more homeless now, and this was even before COVID. But yeah, it's all well and good to say replenishing the state housing stock. An enormous number of those new state house builds were mooted under national and begun under national. And yeah, at the end of the day, there are more homeless now than there were at the beginning. So good on you for visiting the City Mission, but your policies have not necessarily helped so far.
We need to do around the minimum wage, the fact that we as a government need to make sure we're still continuing to support the living wage, and we have to acknowledge for those looking for work on government support, we have been lifting that as well because we have seen too many children in poverty.
Judith Collins.
Well, I know Chris from the Housing First days when we were in government, and we brought that in to get people off the streets and into housing first and then to deal with their issues. One of the big things I think is utterly important is the fact that it doesn't matter what's been promised by Mr Ardern an election ago, 16,000 Kiwi-built homes should have been built by now, and we've got 500. Massive cost involved in that. But what I say is RMA reform is the number one issue. I wrote last year to her minister and said, I want to help you to sort that out so we can get the planning faster, quicker, speed it up, and the houses cheaper. He was sent back basically a one-fingered salute, John.
Are you really saying RMA is the number one solution?
Oh, it is. And even Mr Ardern's government has accepted that RMA reform is utterly crucial to planning and getting housing built. But it's really important too, John, is that we don't overdo everything with housing.
Are you answering Chris Farrelly's question at all, or are you just giving me your favourite RMA speech, which I know you enjoy giving?
Well, because it's right.
So the question is, though, how do we address... Today I went across to buy some goodies from across the road at the convenience store. The man who served me is paying $720 a week rent. $720 a week rent for a smallest house in Mount Roskill. Yeah. Now, there will be people servicing mortgages who are watching tonight, Jacinda Ardern, who are spending less. He can't save a deposit. How the hell do we deal with this?
Actually, you know, one of the things that we've recognised is exactly that scenario. There will be some families who have the income to support a mortgage in certain places, but, you know, building up that deposit. That's why one of the programs we have is progressive home ownership. And we are starting that work. But I will come back to that other really important area. We need more public housing. You know, I have to say, we started really, though, on the back foot in the fact that National had sold off 6,000. We've created...
Didn't you sell off more?
First of all, there was no way Jacinda was going to be able to answer that question without mentioning National. That's part of the playbook. You know, National did all of this. National had 9 years in government, etc.
True. And did actually make it not any better.
Absolutely.
No, I'll go with the National made it worse, actually.
However, Labour do need a point to be awarded a point because, yes, I actually know a few couples who were able to buy a house because they only needed a 5% deposit. That is a policy they've presided over. It's helped. And yes, when you look right back at the first philosophies of state housing, the idea was rent to buy. You would have people in them and they would eventually buy the house. That goal, they've lost sight of that goal many years ago, and successive governments have, and what we've seen with the welfare dependency has been the complete opposite of that. But that was the original idea. If they get back into that, all well and good. There's a few positive signs, but not too many.
I'm down with that. Yeah, okay, sure, I can buy that.
Now over 5,000 public housing places. The sad tragedy is if we'd been able to build at the pace we are now, we would have enough houses for our housing waiting list.
Actually,
we need to keep going. It is critical to our housing supply and for those...
Sorry, Jacinda Ardern, you finish?
October 2017, the Housing and Urban Development Authority, or the housing in those days, reported through to Ms Ardern's government saying that they had 5,000 houses in the pipeline being built. Those are the ones she's now claiming. All started under National, all planned, all consented, sorted out under National. And yeah, well, she can take the credit now. But tell you what, John, we need more housing. We need it faster. We need it cheaper. And one of the ways to do it is actually the RMA. I know you don't like it, but I tell you what, it's the number one thing that holds back developers. And you know, the other thing,
I have to say that she's right about that, and a bit of a fact check and everything. But I do have a friend who's building a house, and he's done it all himself. He's an ex-builder and jack of all trades, and he was telling me that he reckoned that at least 30%, at least about a third of the costs incurred, it was abiding with and satisfying all the meaningless regulations and the red tape and the bureaucratic nonsense they have to put up with. So yes, changing the RMA would make it significantly cheaper.
John, in that first lockdown we had for COVID, construction was stopped. Why? We could have actually had houses being built then.
Isn't a capital gains tax the answer to this? Jacinda Ardern, I want to come to you and ask you. You couldn't get a capital gains tax through because your coalition partner didn't want it.
Yep.
Your coalition partner's polling 2% in the Colmar Brunton One News poll tonight. You said you wouldn't pursue a capital gains tax as long as you were a leader of this party. Do you regret that now?
No, I've tried for 3 elections now, John, and it hasn't been for lack of trying. You know, as a member of the Labour Party, we consistently took a capital gains tax to voters, and at some point, John, you have to accept that voters don't agree with you, and I accepted that.
Would you still like one?
I've already said that I still believe in it, but I have given my word. You will not have a capital gains tax under a Labour-led government that I lead. Yeah. But however, John, have I given up on my ambition for housing? No. In fact, first home buyers now make up 25% of the market. That has increased under us.
First of all, they needed more of the split screen to see the reactions. It's working very well, especially in times like this.
On that subject as well, I don't know why everyone's giving John Campbell so much shit. He's actually doing a really good job.
Honestly, at the very beginning, and I know Mike Hosking wasn't very impressed with his performance, he should be more aggressive and he should be less polite at the end of the day for the reasons I stated at the beginning. But no, he's asked some good questions and he's interjected when he's needed to.
Yep.
So that's the time.
I think he's been fair.
I think absolutely.
I disagree with all the comments giving him shit so far, unless he does something really bad in the second half.
Well, we'll see.
The foreign buyer ban made a difference. Closing tax loopholes made a difference.
Have gone up 27%.
Progressive home ownership will make a difference. We need to keep going. But this is a housing crisis. I can't turn around in 3 years.
Oh, come on, John, this is just too much.
Yeah, I have to say that. I mean, 27% in Labour. Yeah, they went up quite a lot under National and under Labour before that. It's there's guilt on all sides there, and I think that's a bit rich of Judith for pointing out that.
I completely agree, and I also agree. Why do I have to agree with Jacinda here as well? Like, for people who are not New Zealand citizens should not be able to buy businesses or land in New Zealand. Those are the things that are specific to us. And this is sort of very anti-libertarian of me as well. But you should not be able to buy a finite resource which we have in New Zealand that we can't get any more of because land is finite. You should have to be invested heavily in this country by becoming a citizen to buy land here. If you're a citizen, then you can buy land. The Chinese government do it to us all the time. You can't go and buy land in China unless you're a Chinese citizen. Why? For the same reason. Shit. All the Western countries are selling ourselves down the river by selling the finite resource that we have. That is the basis of all production in the first place. Whether it be your home, because that allows you to produce your work and service effort that you put out into the world, or whether it be your industrial estate, where you put your factory or workshop or whatever it is. Even if you're a small business or a large business, it doesn't matter. That is a finite resource. We should not be allowing foreign buyers to come in with huge amounts of fiat currency in particular, that is just printed for the sole purpose of purchasing finite resources that cannot be replenished or expanded in overseas countries to gain control. That is why we should not allow foreign buyers to purchase our land in New Zealand. They can piss off.
And it was a great idea when they banned it, and they were called racist by the base for doing it. And by National too.
Honestly, it's making me laugh. The fact is progressive home ownership was campaigned on by Miss Ardern an election ago, and it hasn't actually eventuated.
What is wrong with the capital gains tax on your second property? You own a second property, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
What's wrong with the capital?
Actually, no, it's not. Well, it's my trust.
Okay.
But yeah, okay.
Okay. So how long has your trust owned the second property?
But you know what, John?
No. How long has your trust?
Since I've been in Wellington, basically. Okay. And that's because I live there. And because otherwise,
And so what's wrong with paying a tax on the capital gain on your second property?
Well, I'm not going to say that to people, because you know what? The next thing is KiwiSaver. That gets captured by the capital gains tax.
So I have to get to this point. Tim Pool made a really good video about this the other day, which I posted in my Facebook feed. You can go back and look at Ask for it, whatever. Capital gains tax is I own a rock. This rock is worth $100. But suddenly, something happens to the supply of rocks, and there's an increase in demand for supply of this particular type of rock. And now this rock is worth $1,000.
because the supply has been cut off, or there's some increase in demand, and now this rock is worth $1,000. So you're going to tax me 10% of $1,000, which is $100. But I don't have $100. All I have is this rock. So now I have to sell the rock, which I don't want to sell, to somebody who wants to buy the rock for $1,000 to pay you the tax that I haven't got. That is the problem with capital gains tax. It is unrealized income. That is the problem.
Artificially tweak the market.
And what you're doing by doing what the Opportunities Party says, which is to go and get a mortgage on your house, to use the mortgage of the value of your property to pay the capital gains tax that you wouldn't have to pay on unrealized profits, is fucking insane, because then you're also paying interest on the money that you're loaning to pay the tax that is non-productive. This is patently insane.
And
it's completely insane.
It was too radical even for Labour's base, which is
I've already paid the tax on the money. I've earned the money. I've paid my 33%. Well, it actually ends up being like 28 to 30% income tax. More if you're a higher up, because it scales that way. So you're paying between 28 and 33% income tax. I've already paid that. I've probably already paid GST on most of that money as well, but not on the property buying if you're buying a piece of land. I've already paid tax. So you're taxing me again on money that doesn't exist. That's the problem. The money doesn't exist. If you are in the nature of development, and you are developing properties, and you're buying and trading properties, and you're flipping them over all the time, that is covered by the General Anti-Avoidance Rule in Income Act 2007, in which case you will be taxed on the profit that you make from those properties, which is, in effect, capital gains tax on people who are trading their properties. What a capital gains tax does is tax people who are not trading their properties. They're not developers. They're not doing it as part of their business. You're taxing people on unrealized value in a property that they've just sat on. They might have bought it 40 years ago. It's gone up over time. What if they're retirees now or a fixed income? You know, ask them to pay tax on a property they might have bought in Remuera when the properties were worth nothing.
Well, that's the main thing. I don't think it's going to eventuate for the.
Well, and under no case is going to happen.
Shares get captured by it. Do people really want to have everything captured by it?
So
and isn't the answer really, John, actually to build more houses? Because you know what, John? It's not as though there's empty houses all over the place everywhere. And you know, the foreign buyer ban, what happened? Actually, house prices went up by 27%. We've had a decrease in immigration.
Yeah, it's not related to that. And when you said there aren't houses sitting around, actually there are quite a lot. And there's even more with the very strict and tenant favouring acts and legislation that's being produced. Yes, quite a lot of homeowners are just land banking now. They're not bothering renting the houses out because the Labor government mostly has made it so hard.
And it's still gone up 27%.
I just want some clarity from you.
Yeah.
You are saying that if house prices have gone up by 27%, not on your family home, but on your second home, there are no circumstances in which you should pay capital gains on that
I'm saying very clearly.
Because ain't no one else earning 27% in this market at the moment, right? Other than homeowners.
Well, that is what Miss Ardern's policies.
No, I'm asking you.
I'm telling you right now, John, I am not putting on a capital gains tax. We're not going to tax our way out of recession. What we are going to do, though, we're going to grow our way out. And I would rather have people wanting to be aspirational and wanting to get ahead rather, and by the way, providing houses for other people to live in as well.
If I may, you know, I've already spoken to the fact that actually I do think things like the foreign buyer ban made a difference. And we can see by the proportion of first home buyers that are now in the market. But if I may, there are some, not all, of course some, who will choose to rent for a time. I want to make sure, though, that people have that choice, that they're not renting because it's the only option.
Are they choosing? Sorry to interrupt, but that's a pejorative term. Are they choosing? Do they have any choice?
No, you've heard me say, not everyone. Some will, but I don't want people to be forced into renting if that's not what they want for themselves. However, for those who do choose to rent, I've also been worried about the standards that they're experiencing in New Zealand. We have needed to make sure that the quality of our housing lifts as well.
And that's a lot of the reason of that 27% and also the rent specifically going up is because of the government's effort to try and make the houses more livable. There are so many shithole properties out there that are damp, are leaking, but damn it, it's the only thing a lot of people can afford. And if you demolish all of those or making it uneconomic to fix them, then those people are going to be at the homeless shelter or a state house.
In their cars,
They're not going to be on the
street. They're going to be on the street because they can't afford. I mean, my place is not that great. I don't have a heat pump or anything in here. I don't really care. I'm renting because it sort of works for me.
And I think maybe they're going to get into that question specifically about the housing.
If you make all houses have to be some massive standard that have got a heat pump. So my sister's an architect, and she's building a lot of what she likes to call slums. Cool. Okay. Why? Because people cannot afford the rent. And most of the people building houses are building them for rental purposes. Now they have to have all this warrant of fitness requirements and the heat pumps and everything else. And what she's finding is that when people put the heat pumps in, they can't afford to run the heat pumps. It's not because they don't have a heat pump. It's because they can't afford the electricity for the heat pump in the first place.
You can never take a house that was built in the 1950s and make it as weathertight and warm as one built in the 2020s. It's as simple as that.
Nuclear energy, invest in infrastructure and nuclear energy, make power essentially free, except the pumped hydro. If you use nuclear power to pump water up the hill, do it that way. That way smaller and more compact. That's what we should do.
We can dream, can't we?
Point here, John, is yes, it's about first-home buyers. It's about low-income families accessing decent, warm, dry housing. And for the rental market, it's about making sure that your home doesn't make you sick. The healthy home standard has been important.
But you want to put people on the street, which makes them more sick.
And that's the thing. It's putting it completely in the hands of the government. You know, on the one hand, yes, we don't want houses that actually make people sick, that have inherent mold issues and things like that. On the other hand, if you're a tenant in a house, it's your responsibility to wipe the walls.
Actually, the National Party also want to get rid of
We've
that
got 20
healthy home standards. Judith Collins.
John, you know what? 20,000 more people now on the State House waiting list, up from 5,000 when we left government. So don't give me that nonsense.
Healthy home standards.
Yeah,
healthy home standards.
We're the ones who actually started the healthy homes.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about them as they stand now.
Right at the moment,
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, I'm not worried about the healthy homes. What I'm worried about is the fact that you can't get rid of an unsocial tenant who causes mayhem in the rest of the street. That's what worries me. And the fact too is that tenants shouldn't be making changes to their rental property unless the landlord agrees to it. These are the sorts of things that I don't agree with.
You're not worried about the healthy homes?
No, I'm very happy for people to have healthy homes and that to be promoted. That's why when I was in government and I was the Minister of Energy and Resources, I made sure that we got that help to landlords to get those rental properties sorted. By the way, do you think all the state houses are healthy? Do you think they're all insulated?
No.
Answer is no, they're not.
No. And thank you for pointing out the important retrofit work that we're doing.
Yeah, and that is how much?
Hundreds of millions.
300,000 per house. Might as well just build a new house.
Yes, you might as well just build a new house. Sell them for land value and profit build a new one.
But at the same time, you look at a lot of those decrepit state houses, they've had absolutely no maintenance in all the 50 or 60 years that they've been in existence for. You know, once again, is it the government's fault to go in there all the time and hold the hands? No, there is a level of personal responsibility there. And if you live in a house, I don't care if it's a state house or one you own or one you rent, it is your responsibility to take care of it to a certain extent.
We started with Porirua, and that's because that's where we have homes that actually, good quality state homes that with decent retrofit will last another 50 years. And again, this is another example of double duty. We invest in retrofitting them, those homes, make them warm and dry. We create jobs, we create apprenticeships, and we create warm homes.
Sorry, Jacinda. Any jobs created by doing things for the government are not actually productive jobs in the economy. Why? Because you're taxing to pay for those jobs people who are doing something productive, and then you are taking a bureaucratic cut of the percentage of that tax that you get, and then you are giving it to other people. It is all entropy, all the way down. You are losing stuff all the way down to bureaucratic inefficiencies. If you just kept the fuck out of the way and built infrastructure that allowed roading and rail and bus networks, which I do not approve of, but if you allowed those things and built those things to new areas to allow people to transport themselves more quickly and spread out into greater city areas than we have at the moment instead of intensification, that would encourage property developers who would actually create jobs. But you taxing people and then claiming that that's creating jobs is absolute bullshit. It is just work for the dole.
Well, it's the Labour Party.
Homes, and that's part of our program too.
New ones. It's better to build new ones in many cases. A lot of these state houses have been around since the 1950s and 60s.
And they were good builds.
Actually, no, they were not. They were not.
No, Jacinda is right. They were built very well, which is why they're still standing now.
Actually, what I grew up in was it was basically a state house. I tell you what, no, they didn't have insulation and the windows didn't shut. So let's be real here. You need new houses and you need better houses.
Right.
You can be expected to have lost your train of thought at this point.
No, I wouldn't mind a gin, just quietly. No tourism, no foreign students. Our farmers stepping up again for the economy, but they're also our biggest carbon emitters. So how the hell do we get that complex balancing act right? That's what we're going to look at after the break. The backbone of this country. Welcome back, everyone. Farming has been the backbone of this country since some clever bugger put a fridge on a ship, right? But with climate change, our relationship with farming is complicated and it's not always easy for farmers to respond to. So after the tourism has gone, we need them to lift a heavy weight. But
after the tourism is gone, we'll need them to lift the heavy weight. They will be shouting at their TVs. Yesterday night at this time, they were shouting at their television sets because they do lift the heavy weight. When you add all of the facets of agriculture and farming, they do the heavy lifting already. Tourism's nice to have, but the country doesn't depend on it.
But, and once again, it's a big but, as explained by our next special guest.
Kia ora, my name's Tracy Brown and I'm a Matamata dairy farmer. Kiwi farmers are world leaders in producing sustainable food and have a key role to play in our post-COVID economic recovery. But in a recent Dairy NZ survey, 62% of farmers said that they or someone on their farm had experienced mental health issues in the last 12 months, with 60% of farmers identifying changing government regulation as the leading cause. We want to play our part in the recovery, but are feeling under pressure. How would you support farmers to farm both sustainably and profitably?
Both sustainably and profitably, Judith Collins.
Yeah, well, Tracy, thank you for that question. I'm a daughter of Matamata dairy farmers as well. I understand that farming is absolutely crucial to our economy, and I also know that New Zealand dairy farmers are the best and most efficient farmers in the world. And of course, greenhouse gases, they produce 0.2% of the world's greenhouse gases from New Zealand to the world. But one of the things we'd do, Tracy, is we'd back you. So we'd back you with science, we'd back you to, and we'd thank you, by the way, for all that riparian planting you've been doing. We'd look after you because we would not bag you and we would not change everything without talking to you about what we need to do.
Jacinda Ardern.
Well, firstly, given, that mental health was raised there, I just want to acknowledge the Rural Support Trust and rural women who do amazing work supporting our rural communities. But on the issue of, change that we are all facing in New Zealand, I absolutely accept that when we're looking at what our export markets are seeking now, they want to know that we are producing our food sustainably, that we're mindful of climate change, biodiversity and water quality, and that creates pressure on all of us. My view is that we've got to do this together. The work we've done this year has been by building consensus, a historic agreement called He Waka Eke Noa, which is all about how we as New Zealand, alongside our farmers, will face our climate challenges. And I'm so proud of that because we did that alongside our farmers and primary producers.
Actually, farmers aren't feeling like that, John. Farmers are feeling like they're bagged all the time by this government. Remember dirty dairying? That was the Greens and Labour going into that. John, when I grew up being a dairy farmer's kid, I was so proud. I was proud as punch. And now I've got dairy farmers saying to me, young dairy farmers saying, I'm only a dairy farmer, because they feel that they have got the weight of the world on them.
So how do we get this right? Sorry, Jacinda Ardern.
Our dairy farmers...
No, sorry, Judith Collins, Jacinda Ardern.
If I may, that feels to me like the view of a world that has passed. When I meet with our dairy...
That's the quote they're all taking Buddy out of context.
Yeah.
And I disagree with what I've seen on Facebook about that. I don't think you can take that comment out of context. I think it's very unfair to Jacinda.
Well, that's the thing. Well, let's listen to
dairy sector, and I have to say, our primary producers as a sector I've probably met with more than any other because of this important work. They absolutely see the need for us to be competitive in this environment. We've got Australian farmers now talking about climate change. There's an inevitability here we have to face, but they are the ones talking about sustainability. Well, actually, they are the ones talking about regenerative farming. They are the ones talking about
they're also talking about their mental health and the fact that they're sick of being blamed for everything.
That's where we've been formulating these plans, because actually we need to work past blame. It's about consensus.
Absolutely infuriating.
Keep blaming them, don't ya?
The problem with this, I mean, Jacinda's talking about basically inspiring other countries to be more sustainable. It's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. Yeah, Australia, you know, they might follow our lead a little bit. It won't make a difference. If we regulate our farm, our agriculture out of business, the shortfall will be picked up by countries who do not give a damn about sustainability. We'll be out of business. The world still needs its beef and lamb, and they'll get it from less sustainable sources. Exactly the same problem will happen if the Greens try and regulate the fishing industry out of business.
They'll get it from more economically efficient sources.
But yeah,
What you have to do if you want the environment to be primacy is listen to people like Simon Court and Mark Cameron from the ACT Party. Mark Cameron is a farmer. He is interested in supporting the sustainability of his family and his farming business, because if his business deteriorates and gets laid to waste by unsustainable practices, he's out of a job. That's not economically efficient. Simon Court is the same. Go and listen to what Simon says about these kind of things. They're way more interesting and way more nuanced than what you hear from Labour and Left, who just want to tax the shit out of everything all the time and make anything completely unproductive. We should be investing in technology that makes farming better and more efficient. That's a good thing. But we're always going to need food. Where's the food come from?
And look, at the end of they're talking, it's all well and good to talk about, you know, having conversations with the farmers and things like that. Well, obviously, somebody didn't tell the Greens that, because they seem to be behind a lot of this latest policy. And at the end of the day, Collins is right. Farmers are very stressed about this.
Farmers suffering mental health issues, and they're saying, we need help and we want you to support us. And now we're being told by Ms Ardern, oh, well, that's a time of the past. No, it's not. They're already the climate change warriors out there. They're already ones dealing with climate change more than anyone else.
And that was my point.
In just a moment, John, they're the most efficient producers of food in the world.
So let's go back to the example you used, which was that we used to say there was dirty dairying. They've improved out of sight, haven't they?
98%.
And there was dirty dairying in this country, wasn't there? Are you denying that?
You know what's really dirty? Are our urban rivers, by the way, John?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that?
Okay, so how do we get this right? Because, boy, they are shouldering a burden, and boy, we need them to. But equally, they are our biggest greenhouse gas emitters, the agricultural sector. So how the hell do we get this right?
Yeah, and actually we do need, for instance, of course,
John got that wrong. This was very enthusiastically fact-checked today by a lot of the farmers. He did not mean they emit carbon. They emit greenhouse gases, the vast majority of which are methane, which is an incidental byproduct of having so many cows and animals around. Yeah, he was wrong in saying carbon. It's not what is concerned here.
So if we're coming back to climate, let's finish that, and then water obviously came up there. Well, we do that by working together, and that was the agreement that we've formed. We've found a way that together we will work towards incentivising changes in the way that we farm.
Incentivising how?
Because we have said that we will work towards a pricing mechanism by 2025 that will do that. That is not only a world first, John, but it's a world first that our farmers and primary producers signed up to, because they know if we want to maintain our competitive margins on the world stage, if we want to sell not volume but value, we'll seek out those customers that want to know where their product is coming from.
New Zealand produces 0.17% of the world's carbon emissions. And by the way, John, you talk about agriculture. Well, actually, a whole lot of that is actually in transport. Transport is a huge emitter. And by the way, electric vehicles are something that we have promoted. Ms Ardern said she was going to have the government fleet, 15,000 cars that are going to be EVs by this time. We've got 108 done. And we are promoting EVs to pay part of that solution.
Are you
on to farmers?
Could farmers do better?
I think our farmers are doing a brilliant job. And by the way, it is true that governments have to be able to support our farmers.
Two things.
Jacinda Ardern.
It is right, though. Our farmers are the best in the world. They are the most efficient in the world. In terms of on a world scale, they do produce very few emissions.
I question that.
In developed countries.
Oh boy, yeah, but what do you mean by efficiency in that case? Because you can get a lot of efficiency if you don't give a shit about animal rights. But I think we make a really good balance between animal rights, which I don't really think is a thing anyway. But that's not really
the issue was environmental.
We don't factory farm most of our animals. We have a lot of free range stuff. The environment and things sort of all work together. And I think that is actually quite a good balance. Like, I think that's actually okay. The most efficient? No, don't believe it for a second. We lack massive amounts of mechanization compared to places like the US, particularly for our crop farming or anything and that sort of thing. We lack the mechanization that allows productive efficiency in those respects. We don't have any vertical farms. Why not? Vertical farms are an amazing way to do this stuff. Go and look at some US examples.
The reality of our emissions profile is that sadly actually 48% is coming from agriculture. I say that not for blame, I say it just because it's reality. Transport's more like 20, but the advantage of us working through a plan on how we'll deal with that as we are means that when the rest of the world starts dealing with its low-hanging fruit like transport, suddenly their emissions profile from food production will look like ours. Already when I travel internationally, I have leaders say to me, what are you doing on food production to get your emissions down? If we get this right, if we build the tech, if we build the framework, we will have IP to sell to the world because they're looking for solutions. This is an opportunity.
Actually,
it's not a cost anymore.
The Paris Accord, which New Zealand signed up to, which the government I was part of signed up to, we had a caveat in there about it not affecting food production. Because, John, we sell food. That's what we do in the world.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Why did you and David Bennett say freshwater standards gone by lunchtime?
Because actually...
gone by lunchtime. Why did you say that?
Because some of them will be. And the one that will be, in particular, is the ban on all new irrigation. You know why, John? If you're trying to convert into a, say, avocado orchard, you're going to have irrigation.
Are we getting this right? Are we getting this balance right?
No, I think there's still got to be some work done around that, and we said we'd review them. But I tell you what, we're not going to say no to new avocado orchards or mandarin orchards, and horticulture is a huge area
so you're saying, so freshwater standards won't be gone by lunchtime?
No, I was saying that they will be reviewed, and there'll be certain things will be, and I can tell you there will not be a ban on all new irrigation, which is what David Parker was said from Jacinda's government. But actually, do you know what? I think we need to understand that you can't make a one-size-fits-all when you're talking about things like that. Do you want to have avocado orchards or not? I think we should.
Let's come back to the water quality question, because actually this is both an urban challenge, as actually Judith rightly pointed out. There is an urban water quality challenge.
Are we carrying our weight in the urban centres?
Oh, well, we do need to
taking our bags to the supermarkets and recycling our plastic. Is that
it? The same expectation around water quality is applying here to urban as it is anywhere else. You know, Auckland Council, for instance, is needing to build a $1 billion piece of infrastructure to make sure that we're separating, stormwater and sewage. So important investment needs to be made. But when it comes to those fresh water standards, I want our waterways to be swimmable again. And I know that actually all our rural communities, that's farmland where their children have swum as well. They want that too. So we're putting in place standards that actually stop the degradation, see material improvements over 5 years, and within a lifetime, we'll see our kids swimming in that water again.
Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins, thank you. Boy, this has flown by. I don't know what the time is, but...
Can we do it again?
Yeah, yeah. Fun. Well, I think you are going to do it again with Jessica Mackay, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. But coming up after the break, our final statement from our leaders, and after that we're going to go to Jessica Mackay. In fact, we've got a panel to assess their performances. Do stay with us.
Another lowball question from Jessica Mackay. Consider us benefited from any of those.
So much for the leaders who are... You are with the Leaders Debate. Thank you so much for the pleasure of your company. Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins, thank you so much for the pleasure of your company. This is the last break. And we're going to get your farewell statements. What's most important to you, Judith Collins, in this country right now?
Right now, the fact that 400 New Zealanders are losing their jobs every day. The fact that people are losing their jobs, they're losing possibly their houses, they're losing their sense of dignity about what they do for a living. I'm so upset that we've got so many people losing their jobs every day.
Wasn't that an inevitability, though, people are losing their jobs in every country of the world that has been affected by COVID.
You've got to have a plan, John, and we've got a plan. We've got a plan to get people back into work. We've got a plan to get businesses back on their feet, and we've got a plan to create new work.
I want to come to Jacinda Ardern. These aren't the closing statements, by the way. Isn't disadvantage amplified at a time like this? Isn't disadvantage amplified?
Do you know,
so what are you going to do for the people who aren't losing their jobs now, who in fact lost them 12 months ago or 5 years ago, and there's a whole heap of bodies on top of theirs now?
Well, that's why we need to build. That's why we need to actually start these infrastructure projects that were held up for a long time. That's why we supported fast-tracking consents for infrastructure projects. That's why we would actually help to get that done, and we did. And I think it's really important too to remember, John, is that there's a whole lot of people now losing their jobs who never thought they'd be on the dole heap before. They never thought they'd be there.
What's the most important thing to you right now, Jacinda Ardern?
You know, that our plan for the future gives people as much certainty and hope as we can. Because if there's anything right now that people are feeling, I know it's that sense of uncertainty, and in those occasions you need a plan. You need a plan that can already is showing that it's delivering results for people, that people can have trust in, but that also is thinking about not just them in the here and now, but the future and the next generation as well, because I know parents are worried about that too.
And so what is the plan?
Well, as I've said, you know, this is where we pay double duty. We build the infrastructure we need, not just now, but for tomorrow, the things that create jobs. You know, we invest in things like improving our environment through waterway projects that, again, double duty, create jobs and help us protect and improve our environment. We do things like put in free school lunches. Do you know there are 2,000 jobs created by feeding 200,000 kids? That is double duty. That's getting 2 double wins out of the projects for the future.
Judith Collins, I want to ask you a question. There were 570,000 hardship grants given out in the December quarter. Mm-hmm. Now, we know hardship grants are when people run out of money, essentially. Mm-hmm. You have a potential coalition partner in ACT who wants to remove the $25 that the benefit increases that the beneficiaries have received under this government. And I need to say, and I need to put on the record, those $25 increases were way less than the Welfare Expert Advisory Group was calling for. Have you read the Welfare Expert Advisory Group report, Judith?
No, I haven't, but I can tell.
The hint's in the name, really. It's a Welfare Expert Advisory Group, so the conclusion they're going to come to is right there in the title.
This though, I was part of a government that increased benefits for the first time in 43 years, and it is utterly crucial that people who are absolutely in that position, as you say, in hardship, that they are not further put into further hardship.
Would you say to David Seymour, no way that $25
Yeah,
is coming off?
absolutely. I want David Seymour to help me sort out the RMA, and that's what I want his votes for. But I can tell you this, John, is if anyone wants a national government, vote national.
Right. Jacinda Ardern, freed from the shackles of New Zealand First, and I've had one minister after another tell me on the record and off, you would have done more in that space had New Zealand First not stymied you. Would you like to implement more of the Welfare Expert Advisory Group policies should you be Prime Minister after the election?
We've implemented 22 of the recommendations so far, and we have seen, you know, that the changes that we've made have already made a big difference. You know, in fact, the Children's Commissioner himself said that no one had laid the foundations to address child poverty as much as we have of any government in the last 30 years. But there is more to do, and that's why I'm standing here, John. There is more to do. We won't do it overnight. You know, things that are built up over decades, and so if you're looking for something quick and fast, it will take time, but I still stand by the aspirations that we have around child poverty. We're a country where every child deserves to grow up in a family that can afford to feed them and have a healthy, warm, dry home.
This is nonsense, John. Last election, Miss Ardern stood here and said she came into politics to end child poverty. And what's happened is children living in material hardship, those numbers have gone up by 4,100, and that was before COVID-19.
And I think what
you should be really showing them both down here, though, because it's ending comments. But
exactly what Judith is saying is absolutely right. There has always, from the very beginning, there's been a massive disconnect between Labour's and Jacinda Ardern's vision and reality. And child poverty is one of the more egregious examples of this. Yeah. Jacinda did say she was going to come in to end it. It's only gotten worse. And now there's even more of a mess. And rather than actually sort of saying what they're going to do to stop it. She's talking about the future and the future. We're going to do this in the future. It is just spin, and Collins is right to call her out for it.
So don't give me those figures, because we know the child poverty numbers. No, the child poverty index, that actually puts one child against another. It says how are they in terms of inequality. But actually material hardship, that's where a kid can't have shoes in their feet. And there are 151,000 children in this country right now like that.
John,
so she's done nothing on it.
Yes,
passionate
Jacinda
about, so I find it
and
quite
then, so Jacinda Ardern, and then we'll have closing statements.
If I may, when we came to government, of all the measures we use, and we use about 9, 7 of them were getting worse. In the short time we've had, we've improved those to see that 7 are now better. Now, what Judith is talking about is one of those, that is material hardship.
And that's running out of things.
Fair to say, yeah, it is fair to say, because that measures things like
those 7, a lot of those 7 were things like a child being born to a parent who has a criminal conviction, solo parents and things like that. It's questionable how much the government has actually done into sorting that out. Remember, there are a lot more people on the benefit, that was the other thing, parents on the benefit.
Not convicted people of crimes anymore.
So
whatever.
Really, it's not all. Yes, there have been improvements, but I don't think Labor can really take credit for that.
Like whether or not you can afford to go there to get your teeth done. It measures whether or not you have a place to do your homework and you have healthy food on the table. So those really direct things we do make a difference there. Food in schools will make a difference there. Those are the kinds of projects that move material hardship. John, I am not done on child poverty. And you have a very stark difference between us as leaders over our plans in that area.
Right, stop. So, I'm so sorry, but we need to get our closing statements. Yep. And so Judith Collins, you started the night, so you're going to begin the closing statements, and we will ding a bell. How long? We got 60 seconds. Off you go. You don't have to do the whole thing. We'll ding a bell after 60.
Right. So this election is the most important election in generations, and the reason is you're going to have a stark contrast about whether or not we muddle along and have lots of hopeful thoughts and statements, or whether or not you vote for a party that has a plan. And that plan is to build our economy. We can do it if we have the plan and we have that in place. That is about giving tax cuts immediately to our average earners who at the moment are really struggling. But it's also about building infrastructure. It's also about taking out the Resource Management Act and putting in better legislation that gets houses built. If you want to know one of the reasons that Ms Ardern can't sort out Kiwi Build is because actually the RMA and the fact that she underestimated just how tough it is to build a house. And if governments can't do it with all the money that they've used from your money, how in the world does anyone else do it? So vote for us, because we're the people who get stuff done.
Fair comment. The private developers have done so much more than the government to alleviate the housing crisis.
Of course. How could they not? The government is nothing but bureaucratic inefficiencies.
Jacinda Ardern, now, good God, that was to the bell.
That's it.
Jacinda Ardern, so I think that's your camera over there. It's drifted across if you want to directly address it.
So this has been a really tough time for New Zealand. You know, we've had a terrorist attack, a natural disaster and a global pandemic. But in those tough times, we have seen the best of us. We've been able to clear high hurdles and face huge challenges because of who we are, but also because we've had a plan. We have a plan now, and it is already making a difference. It's investing in our people to retrain. It's helping our small businesses to rebuild, and it's investing in infrastructure for the future. You need strong and stable government to keep going and delivering on that plan, but we also need our future generations to look back and see a government who made decisions that build a stronger, better New Zealand and that they can be proud of. Now is the time to keep moving. Hoake tono tātou. Let's keep moving.
Jacinda Ardern and Judith Collins, thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's a bloody tough job being a politician. There's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of pressure on the campaign trail, and yet the best politicians have the capacity and the potential to lead us somewhere better. So I really wish you both well. One of you will be Prime Minister after the election, and may whoever it is be as successful as we all deserve. Thank you both for being with us tonight. We appreciate your time, we appreciate your passion, and we appreciate your energy. Good luck, both of you. Thank you.
John.
That's all from our two leaders. I do really wish them well. We'll be back, though, with our political editor, Jessica Much-Mackay, and our political scientist, Jennifer Lees-Marshman.
That's enough.
Yeah, we don't need to hear the rest of it. John Campbell,
Absolutely.
I think you got an unnecessarily hard time over that. I don't think you did a bad job at all. I have no problem with your interview. You interrupted both of them in sort of semi-equal manners. You interrupted them when they were doing things that they shouldn't be doing, when they're talking over each other. I thought you took control of some questions, both with Judith and Jacinda. I actually don't have a single problem with what you did tonight, and I think you're getting an unnecessarily hard time. So actually, good job, John Campbell. Well done.
If there's one criticism I have to level at him, he was unusually polite. You don't have to be polite. You know, these are politicians. You have to grab them by the scruff of the neck and make them answer those questions. And
I didn't notice the politeness.
Well, he was very respectful. And
that's okay, though.
Softly spoken.
That's okay. Politeness and respect is a good thing. You are talking to the two potentially former leaders of the country. Like, I think you've been given an unnecessarily hard time, John Campbell. I think you actually did a pretty good job, mate. Don't worry about it. Keep going.
Well, I guess we have another election special at some point in the next few weeks.
Do you want to have final thoughts about where you sort of sit with both of those? Everyone's talking today. Did Judith win?
I don't like both of the major parties, either of them. A lot of that is inherently they have to appeal to the most number of people. They are centrist parties. This is not like America. It's not left and right, like Democrats and Republicans. They are very moderate in nature. I tend to look upon being moderate and centrist as also being very inefficient. They aim to please everybody and are more likely to please nobody in doing so. That said, both of them appear to be leadership material. I'd give the win to Judith Collins because a lot of the time when she was interjecting, when she was fighting back, she used actual facts and figures. With Jacinda Ardern, and we've known her for 4 years as the Prime Minister, just about. And yeah, there's a lot of vision, there's a lot of talk of hypothetical, optimistic scenarios that don't always have a great deal to do with reality. And it also explains why they've increased their support a little bit, but 48% in the polls. There's still an enormous number of people who listen to all of that optimism and listen to all that talk about visions, experience what the reality is, and they do not support the Labour Party. And in that sense, they haven't done very much to build their base since last election. And yeah, that said, both of them performed pretty well in their own unique ways.
Would I give Judith a win? I don't know. I want to see more from Judith. I expect more from Judith. She's been a bloody lawyer. She knows what she's doing. She knows what cross-examination is like. What is she doing? Why is this so polite? Jacinda has no substance. It is all promises of the future and all things that she's going to do tomorrow. And as we all know, tomorrow never comes. And it will continue never to come because there's absolutely no way she can achieve anything she's achieved or claims she's going to achieve, as has been proven by her last 3 leadership years in power. There is no reason to believe a single thing that she has said tonight. As Judith keeps pointing out, she's lying about a lot of these facts most of the time. But by the same token, not impressed, Judith. Not impressed. Get it together. Now is the time to actually do something. You are in the right. You have the facts on your side. Get out there. Make your point. Stop pussyfooting around these bloody Marxists on the left and do something about it. I don't know what else to say. I'm looking forward to whatever leadership debates we have in the near future. I'm quite looking forward to the Mining Party leadership debate because you all know I'm obviously a very deep ACT supporter for a good reason. National, stop being Labour light.
It even came out today that they were Collins was deliberately avoiding going straight for Judith's jugular because they believe it could put off a lot of their supporters, even ones who were leaning toward National. If she attacked Ardern too bad, they still like Jacinda Ardern. Now, she's a very likable person, but yeah, the problem is it's not going to work. I think they just have to throw caution to the wind. A lot of there's evidence that a lot of the disaffected National supporters have gone for ACT because they're more, well, I'm not going to say radical, but they're more
moderate centrist libertarians. That's what National used to be. The National has stopped being moderate centrist libertarians and has become Labour light. Bugger it. At this point, guys, get it over. Get in bed, have sex already, become the Purple Party. I'm actually done with both of you.
Fair enough. And hey, the rising poll numbers for a lot of the minor parties, or specific minor parties, I should say, not the ones that have made fools of themselves, not so much the Greens and New Zealand First, but that tends to suggest that an enormous number of people are sick of Labour and sick of National too. Can't blame them.
Really can't. Well, that's certainly been an incredibly long-winded but kind of fun exercise.
Oh, still with us. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't know. We'll see what we can do about chopping it up into sort of more manageable little parts. Maybe do the same sort of segments as they did with the advertisements as well. So you don't have to watch what I assume is going to be a very 2 hours worth of commentary about the leader debates in New Zealand at the moment. But keep tuned. We will be keeping you updated on our thoughts and opinions about these topics as we progress towards the election, which is now only what amounts to a few weeks away. What, just a month or something at this point?
Something like that.
We're getting closer, guys. This is the most important election of our lifetimes. I don't care who you are, what you do. You make sure you do your research, get politically engaged, and get out there with a vote. You don't have to agree with me, but you do have to have your say.
And if you don't vote, hey, that's every bit a vote, every bit a sign of legitimate protest if you don't trust any of them, and don't let anybody tell you, put a gun to your head and tell you need to vote, and you're somehow disrespecting your ancestors if you don't. Hey, it's your choice. We're all about freedom of choice here, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, guys. See you later.
Ka kite ana? Am I saying that right?
I don't know.
Neither do I.